The photograph lies open on my desk, stark under the beam of my reading lamp. 23 smiling faces arranged in 3 neat rows. 22 intact, 1 violently obliterated. Mine. The familiar school emblem is embossed in gold at the top. Oak Ridge Academy, class of 2005. But it's the handwritten caption underneath my mutilated image that chills me to the bone. She doesn't belong here. I don't remember writing those words. I don't remember slashing out my own face. Yet the yearbook was found in my attic storage, in a box I packed myself 15 years ago. My handwriting. My yearbook. My face, erased with such violence that the paper beneath is shredded. The doctors say recovering lost memories can be dangerous, that sometimes the mind buries things for a reason. But I need to know what happened during my final year at Oak Ridge Academy. I need to know why I apparently tried to erase myself from its history. Because now, 20 years later, I've been hired as the new art teacher at Oak Ridge Academy, and someone has slipped a note into my faculty mailbox. It simply reads, "She still doesn't belong here." The iron gates of Oak Ridge Academy loomed before me, Gothic spires piercing the September sky beyond them. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, a thin sheen of sweat forming on my palms despite the car's air conditioning. 15 years since I'd set foot on these grounds. 15 years of building a new life, a teaching career at public schools far from here, pretending my final year at this prestigious boarding school hadn't ended in a blank space I couldn't explain. "You can do this, Eliza," I whispered to myself, adjusting the rearview mirror to check my appearance one last time. At 35, I looked professional enough. Dark hair pulled back, minimal makeup, black blazer over a burgundy blouse. No outward signs of the anxiety churning inside me. The security guard waved me through after checking my new faculty ID. I parked in the designated spot bearing my name. E. Mercer, Art Department. A small victory, seeing my name officially affiliated with this place again, albeit in a completely different capacity. I gathered my portfolio and first-day materials, trying to focus on the present. I was here because the prestigious Oak Ridge Academy had actively recruited me after my exhibition in Boston received unexpected acclaim. Their longtime art teacher had retired, and somehow my name had risen to the top of their list. The irony wasn't lost on me. Returning as faculty to the school I'd apparently wanted to forget so badly that I'd literally cut myself out of its pictorial history. The administration building hadn't changed, all oak panels and portraits of stern-faced founders. The corridors still smelled of lemon polish and old books. But everything felt smaller somehow, less intimidating than in my memories. At least, the memories I still possessed. "Eliza, welcome back to Oak Ridge." Headmaster Richard Pierce extended his hand as I entered his office. He'd aged well in the 15 years since he'd been my literature teacher, silver streaks at his temples, but the same commanding presence. "Thank you for this opportunity," I said, shaking his hand firmly. "It feels surreal to be back." "I imagine so. Not many of our alumni return as faculty. But your work has been exceptional, and when the position opened, the board immediately thought of you." He gestured for me to sit. "We're particularly excited about your ideas for expanding the visual arts curriculum. Oak Ridge has always excelled in academics, but we've been working to strengthen our arts programs." We discussed scheduling and expectations, the conversation flowing more easily than I'd anticipated. No mention of my unusual departure from Oak Ridge as a student. No reference to any gaps in my record. As our meeting concluded, Pierce walked me to the door. "The faculty welcome dinner is tonight at 7 in the old dining hall. Until then, why don't you get reacquainted with campus? Your classroom in the Lambert Arts Building has been prepared." I nodded, relieved to have time alone to gather my thoughts. "Oh, and Eliza," he added, his voice softening slightly. "I know returning can sometimes stir up memories. If you need anything at all, my door is always open." Something in his tone made me pause. Did he know about my missing memories? About the yearbook? But his expression revealed nothing beyond professional courtesy, and I thanked him before making my exit. The Lambert Arts Building stood at the edge of campus, partially secluded by a grove of maples just beginning to hint at their autumn transformation. My classroom was on the 2nd floor, a large, light-filled studio with windows overlooking the eastern grounds. The space had been recently renovated, smelling of fresh paint and new wood. Nothing like the cramped art room I vaguely remembered from my student days. I was arranging my materials when I felt a presence in the doorway. So the prodigal daughter returns. I turned to find a woman approximately my age leaning against the doorframe. Something about her was vaguely familiar, auburn haircut and a sharp bob, intelligent eyes behind stylish glasses. "Rebecca Winters," she said, crossing the room to offer her hand. We were classmates, though I doubt you'd remember me. I was pretty forgettable back then. The name stirred something, but no clear image formed. I'm sorry, my memory of those days is spotty. She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. Convenient. I teach mathematics now, been here 6 years. When I heard you were joining faculty, I could hardly believe it. Oh. I arranged my face into what I hoped was a neutral expression. Just surprising, given how things ended. But water under the bridge, right? She glanced around the studio appreciatively. They really upgraded this space for you. The old art teacher made do with half this square footage. Before I could respond, another figure appeared in the doorway, a tall man with kind eyes and an easy smile. Beck, are you interrogating our new colleague already? He approached with an extended hand. Daniel Hayes, Art History Department. Don't mind Rebecca, she's protective of Oak Ridge. Just making small talk, Rebecca said, her tone lighter now. Reminiscing about old times. Which I barely remember, I interjected, deciding transparency might be my best defense. I had some health issues my senior year. Left with significant memory gaps. Rebecca's eyebrows shot up in apparent surprise. I had no idea. That must be difficult. Daniel nodded sympathetically. Well, you're making new memories now. Better ones, hopefully. He checked his watch. Faculty meeting in 30 minutes in the main conference room. I can walk you over if you'd like. I accepted gratefully, and Rebecca excused herself with a smile that didn't quite conceal her scrutiny. As we walked across the immaculately maintained grounds, Daniel provided a running commentary on the changes to campus over the years, the politics of various departments, which faculty members to befriend and which to avoid. And then there's Minerva Jenkins, he said as we approached the main building. She's been the school archivist and librarian since the Mesozoic era. Knows everything about everyone. If you need any historical information about Oak Ridge, she's your person. The name triggered something, a flash of a stern woman with glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. I think I remember her, I said slowly. She was here when I was a student. She's been here since the dawn of time, Daniel confirmed with a grin. Some say she's actually a vampire who sustains herself on overdue book fines and the tears of freshmen who misuse the Dewey Decimal System. His humor was refreshing, and I found myself relaxing slightly as we entered the main building. But as we passed the administration wing, a chill ran down my spine. I glanced at the row of faculty mailboxes lining the wall and froze. One box had my name freshly printed on its label, E. Mercer. The small door was slightly ajar. Everything okay? Daniel asked, noticing my hesitation. Just taking it all in, I lied, making a mental note to check that mailbox after the meeting. The faculty gathering was a blur of introductions and information. 25 teachers ranging from fresh-faced recent graduates to veterans nearing retirement. I smiled and shook hands, trying to absorb names and subjects, all while feeling increasingly like an imposter. These people belonged here. I was still trying to understand why I'd apparently once felt I didn't. After the meeting dispersed, I lingered, waiting until the hallway emptied before approaching the faculty mailboxes. My hand trembled slightly as I opened the small metal door labeled with my name. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded precisely in half. I withdrew it slowly, unfolding it to reveal a message written in black ink. She still doesn't belong here. My blood ran cold. The handwriting was jagged, pressed hard enough to emboss the paper. I glanced around, but the hallway remained empty. With shaking hands, I refolded the note and slipped it into my blazer pocket. That night, in my newly rented cottage just off campus, I pulled out both the defaced yearbook and the new note, placing them side by side on my kitchen table. The handwriting wasn't the same. The yearbook caption was in my own neat penmanship from my teenage years, while the note was written in harsh, deliberate strokes. Someone else had written the new message. Someone who knew about the yearbook. Someone who knew about my missing memories. Sleep proved elusive that night. I tossed in unfamiliar sheets, haunted by fragments of dreams, a flash of red, running down empty hallways, the sound of laughter echoing from somewhere I couldn't identify. I woke gasping at 3:17 a.m., the digital clock numbers glowing accusingly in the darkness. As I stumbled to the bathroom for a glass of water, a movement outside my kitchen window caught my eye. A figure standing at the edge of my property, partially hidden by shadow. I froze, heart pounding, but when I blinked, there was nothing there but the gentle sway of trees in the late summer breeze. Just my imagination. It had to be. Or a deer, common in these wooded outskirts. But as I returned to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. That my return to Oak Ridge had set something in motion, or perhaps resumed something that had never truly ended. My first week of classes established a routine that should have been comforting, but instead felt like an elaborate performance. By day, I guided students through color theory and composition techniques, my professional mask firmly in place. At night, I pored over my old yearbook and the few mementos I had from my time at Oak Ridge, searching for clues to my lost senior year. The second note arrived on Wednesday, slipped under my classroom door overnight. Remember yet? You will. 3 words that sent a chill down my spine. I tucked it into the growing file of disturbing communications, alongside the first note and photographs of my defaced yearbook. On Friday afternoon, as students dispersed for the weekend, I made my way to the Radcliffe Library. The imposing stone building housed not only the school's impressive collection but also its archives. If answers about my past existed anywhere on campus, they would be here. The library's main hall soared 3 stories high, ringed by balconied walkways and filled with the distinctive scent of aged paper and wood polish. A few students lingered at study tables, but the weekend exodus had left the space relatively empty. At the central desk sat a woman who could only be Minerva Jenkins, silver hair in a severe bun, glasses still hanging from a chain around her neck, just as I'd vaguely remembered. She looked up as I approached, eyes narrowing slightly in recognition. "Ms. Mercer," she said before I could introduce myself. "I wondered when you'd find your way here." Something about her tone suggested she'd been expecting me. "You remember me?" I asked, taking a seat at her desk. "I remember all my students, particularly the ones who spent as much time here as you did." She removed her glasses, letting them dangle from their chain. "Though you look quite different now. More substantial." I wasn't certain if that was a compliment. "I'm trying to research something from my time here as a student. My senior year, specifically. The year you left midterm," she stated matter-of-factly. "February 2005, if memory serves." The precision of the date startled me. "Yes. I've been having trouble recalling details from that time. Medical issues affected my memory." She studied me with such intensity that I fought the urge to squirm. "The mind protects itself in curious ways," she finally said. "What specifically are you hoping to find?" "Yearbooks, student newspapers, anything that might help me piece together what happened that year." She rose with surprising agility for a woman her age. "Follow me." Rather than leading me to the public archives, Minerva guided me through a door marked "Staff Only" and down a narrow staircase to the library's basement level. The temperature dropped noticeably as we descended, and the lighting became sparse and yellow-tinged. "The student publications are kept down here," she explained, unlocking another door with a key from the substantial ring at her waist. "More sensitive materials as well." The archives room was larger than I expected, with metal shelving units creating narrow aisles that stretched into dimness. Minerva moved with certainty to a section labeled Student Publications and ran her finger along a row of bound yearbooks. "Curious thing about the 2005 yearbook," she said, withdrawing a volume. "There was a printing delay. By the time they arrived, the school year had ended quite dramatically." She handed me the official school yearbook, identical to my own copy but intact, without the defacement. I opened it with trepidation, turning to my class section. There was my photograph, unaltered. No slashed face. No ominous caption. "This doesn't make sense," I murmured, more to myself than to Minerva. "In my copy, my face is cut out." "Then someone altered your yearbook after printing," she replied calmly. "The question is, was it you or someone else?" Before I could respond, she continued deeper into the archives, motioning for me to follow. The student newspapers might be more illuminating. The Oak Ridge Observer was quite thorough in its coverage of school events. She retrieved several bound volumes and placed them on a reading table equipped with a single lamp. "These cover the 2004 to 2005 academic year. I'll leave you to your research." She hesitated, then added, "Some memories may be painful to recover, Ms. Mercer. Proceed with caution." With that cryptic warning, she retreated, the sound of her sensible shoes fading as she ascended the stairs. I spent the next 3 hours poring over student newspapers, tracking the progression of that fateful school year. The early issues showed a normal academic term: sports victories, drama productions, academic achievements. My name appeared occasionally, usually in connection with art competitions or gallery showings. Then came the November 18th issue. A front-page article described a disturbing incident in the girls' dormitory. No names were mentioned, but the article referenced vandalism of a personal and threatening nature and ongoing investigation by administration. The piece ended with a quote from Headmaster Pierce, then just Professor Pierce, urging students to come forward with any information. I searched subsequent issues for follow-up, but found nothing explicit. However, I began noticing a pattern. After November, my name disappeared from the paper entirely, no art show mentions, no committee reports, nothing. It was as if I'd ceased to exist within the school community. The final issue I examined was dated February 10, 2005. A small item on page 3 caught my eye. Oak Ridge administration announced yesterday that senior Eliza Mercer has withdrawn from the academy for personal reasons. The student body extends best wishes for her recovery. Recovery. The word seemed to leap from the page. Recovery from what? I was so absorbed in my discovery that I didn't notice the presence behind me until a shadow fell across the table. Finding anything interesting? I startled, turning to find Rebecca Winters observing me with undisguised curiosity. Just filling in some blanks, I replied, resisting the urge to cover the newspapers. Memory lane can be a treacherous path. She pulled out a chair and sat opposite me, especially when the memories aren't entirely pleasant. Something in her tone made me uneasy. Did we know each other well? Back then? A smile played at the corners of her mouth. Oh, we had several classes together. AP Chemistry. Advanced Calculus. You were always so focused. Until you weren't. What happened? I asked directly. All I know is that I left in February. Medical issues, I was told. Rebecca leaned forward, lowering her voice though we were alone. Is that what they called it? Interesting euphemism. My patience thinned. If you know something, please just tell me. She seemed to consider this, studying me as if assessing my readiness for whatever information she possessed. Finally, she sighed and sat back. There were rumors. Many versions of why you left so suddenly. Some said you had a nervous breakdown after the vandalism incident. Others suggested more, deliberate self-harm. She watched my reaction carefully. The official story was some kind of viral encephalitis that affected your memory and required specialized treatment. Vandalism incident, I repeated, thinking of the newspaper article. What exactly happened? Someone broke into your dorm room while you were at an away art competition. Destroyed quite a bit of your work. Left some threatening messages. She tilted her head. You really don't remember any of this? I shook my head, struggling to process this new information. Were they ever caught? The vandal? Not officially. Though most people had their theories. She glanced at her watch. I should get going. Faculty dinner tonight at the headmaster's residence. You're coming, I assume. Yes, of course, I replied automatically, my mind still reeling. Rebecca stood, smoothing her skirt. Word of advice? Be careful digging up the past. Not everyone at Oak Ridge will be thrilled about old scandals resurfacing. She paused. Some people have worked very hard to make certain memories disappear. After she left, I remained in the archives, troubled by our exchange. Rebecca clearly knew more than she was sharing, and her warning carried an unmistakable undertone of threat. I returned to the newspapers, scanning for any mention of the vandalism incident or my subsequent departure. As I flipped through the January edition, a small photograph caught my eye, a group shot of the advanced placement art class. I recognized my younger self, standing slightly apart from the others. But what drew my attention was the figure beside me, cropped partially out of frame, a young man with dark, intense eyes looking not at the camera but directly at me. I peered closer, trying to place him. Something about those eyes triggered a visceral response, a tightening in my chest, a flutter of anxiety. Who was he? And why did his gaze affect me so strongly even in a grainy, 15-year-old photograph? I checked my watch, realizing with alarm that I had less than an hour to prepare for the faculty dinner. Gathering my notes, I returned the newspapers to Minerva's desk upstairs. The library had emptied completely during my research, and even Minerva was nowhere to be seen. I left a thank you note and hurried back to my cottage to change. The dinner at Headmaster Pierce's Grand Victorian residence on the edge of campus was a formal affair, white tablecloths, crystal glasses, and substantial networking expectations. I arrived wearing the only cocktail dress I brought to Oak Ridge, a simple black sheath that felt inadequate among the more sophisticated attire of my colleagues. Eliza, welcome, Pierce greeted me at the door, his wife Caroline beside him. I believe you knew Caroline when you were a student? She was the dance instructor then. The slender woman extended her hand with a practiced smile. Briefly, Eliza wasn't one for dance, as I recall. Something about her tone triggered a memory, stern corrections, the humiliation of being singled out for poor technique. I had 2 left feet, I acknowledged with a self-deprecating smile. Among other challenges, Caroline replied enigmatically before turning to greet another arriving guest. The evening proceeded with expected academic small talk and subtle hierarchical posturing. I maintained my professional facade while observing the dynamics around me. Rebecca held court with several science faculty members, occasionally glancing in my direction. Daniel offered a friendly smile from across the room, where he seemed trapped in conversation with an elderly trustee. As dinner concluded and guests dispersed into smaller conversational groups, I found myself beside Headmaster Pierce at the drinks table. "Are you settling in all right?" he asked, refreshing my sparkling water. "Finding everything you need?" "Yes, thank you," I replied automatically, then reconsidered. "Actually, I've been trying to piece together some of my history here. My memory of my senior year is fragmented." Pierce's expression remained neutral, but I noticed a subtle tensing around his eyes. The encephalitis took quite a toll, as I understand it. Perhaps some memories are better left buried. "That's the second time today someone has discouraged my research," I noted. "Makes me wonder what I'm not supposed to find." He sighed, glancing around to ensure we weren't overheard. "Eliza, your departure from Oak Ridge was complicated. There were incidents, situations that created difficult dynamics. The school has moved forward, as I hope you have." "Difficult dynamics," I repeated. "You mean the vandalism in my dorm room?" His eyebrows lifted slightly. "You've been talking to Rebecca and reading old newspapers, but no one seems willing to tell me the complete story." Pierce placed his drink down, his demeanor shifting from social to serious. "Because there are other people involved whose privacy deserves consideration. Not everything that happens at a school this size makes it into official records." Before I could press further, we were interrupted by the arrival of a latecomer, a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit who commanded immediate attention as he entered the room. "Ah, Adam," Pierce called, raising a hand in greeting. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't make it." The newcomer approached, his confident stride and charismatic presence drawing all eyes. "Traffic from the city was brutal," he explained, before turning his gaze to me. The moment our eyes met, my glass nearly slipped from my hand. His eyes, dark, intense, were unmistakable, though now set in the matured face of a man in his 30s rather than the teenage boy from the photograph. "Adam, let me introduce our newest faculty member, Eliza Mercer," Pierce said. "Eliza, this is Adam Blackwood, head of our board of trustees and one of our most distinguished alumni." Adam's smile didn't reach his eyes as he extended his hand. "Eliza Mercer," he repeated, his tone suggesting recognition. "Welcome back to Oak Ridge." As our hands touched, a jolt of something, memory? Fear? Recognition? Surged through me. Fragments of images flashed rapid fire. A darkened art studio, canvas slashed to ribbons, his face contorted with an emotion I couldn't identify. I pulled my hand away quickly, struggling to maintain my composure. "Thank you," I managed. "It's quite a homecoming." "Indeed," he replied smoothly. "We must catch up properly. I'm sure we have much to discuss." As he moved away to greet other faculty members, I excused myself, needing air and distance. On the veranda outside, I gulped in the cool evening breeze, trying to steady my racing heart. Adam Blackwood, the boy from the photograph. Something about him had triggered a physical panic response, yet I couldn't access the memory explaining why. But one thing was becoming clear. My return to Oak Ridge had stirred a hornet's nest, and the strange notes and unsettling encounters were just the beginning. As I gazed out at the darkened campus grounds, movement near the tree line caught my attention. A figure stood watching the house, the same silhouette I'd glimpsed outside my cottage. But this time, when I blinked, it remained, observing me with unmistakable intent before melting back into the darkness. The Monday following the faculty dinner brought rain, a relentless, atmospheric downpour that seemed to isolate Oak Ridge Academy from the outside world. Water streamed down the leaded windows of my classroom as I guided students through a still life exercise, my mind only partially engaged with their work. Since identifying Adam Blackwood as the boy from the photograph, I'd spent every spare moment searching for connections between us. Online research revealed he'd graduated from Oak Ridge the same year I had, going on to an impressive career in finance before returning to join the board of trustees 3 years ago. His family had deep ties to the school. Generations of Blackwoods had attended and supported Oak Ridge financially. But nothing explained the visceral reaction I'd had to him, nor the disturbing flash of memory his touch had triggered. As my last class filed out, Daniel appeared in the doorway, rain darkening the shoulders of his tweed jacket. "Proper English weather we're having," he commented cheerfully. "Perfect for the ghost stories my seniors are analyzing. Or for uncovering buried secrets," I replied, then wished I hadn't when his expression grew concerned. "Everything okay? You seemed distracted at Pierce's dinner the other night." I hesitated, debating how much to share. Daniel had been consistently friendly, but I still knew little about his connections within Oak Ridge's complex social hierarchy. Finally, I decided on a partial truth. I've been experiencing some strange incidents since arriving. Anonymous notes. Odd encounters. It's probably nothing. Daniel frowned, closing the classroom door behind him. Notes saying what, exactly? She doesn't belong here, I quoted. And, remember yet? You will. His frown deepened. That sounds like harassment, Eliza. Have you told Pierce? Not yet. I'm trying to understand what's happening first. I gathered my courage. Daniel, what do you know about Adam Blackwood? The question clearly surprised him. Adam? He's Oak Ridge royalty. Family's donated millions over the years. He's been instrumental in some of our recent expansions, including the renovations to this building. He studied my expression. Why? We were students here at the same time. I'm trying to piece together my senior year. Ah, Daniel nodded slowly. The year you left midterm. You know about that? Teacher's lounge gossip, he explained apologetically. When you were hired, it stirred up some old stories. Most of us ignored it as ancient history. What kind of stories? I pressed. He shrugged uncomfortably. Nothing concrete. Whispers about a student scandal, something hushed up to protect the school's reputation. Your name was mentioned, as was Adam's. A knock at the door interrupted us. Rebecca stood in the doorway, rain dripping from her umbrella. Hope I'm not interrupting, she said, though her tone suggested she didn't much care if she was. Eliza, Minerva asked me to deliver this to you. Said you'd requested some archive materials. She handed me a manila envelope, damp at the edges. Inside was a folded note in Minerva's precise handwriting. Found this in a separate archive. Thought it might be relevant to your research. M.J. Beneath the note was a glossy photograph, a candid shot of what appeared to be a student exhibition opening. I recognized my younger self near the center, standing beside a large abstract painting. And there was Adam Blackwood, his arm draped possessively around my waist, his expression triumphant as he gazed not at the camera but at me. Interesting, Rebecca commented, peering at the photograph. I'd forgotten you two were an item. I looked up sharply. We were together? Rebecca's eyebrows shot up in apparent surprise. You really don't remember? It was quite the relationship, intense, obsessive even. The golden boy and the scholarship art student. Quite the scandal when it imploded. Daniel cleared his throat uncomfortably. Beck, maybe this isn't. What? She challenged. She's asking questions. I'm providing answers. She turned back to me. Adam was fixated on you. When you ended things, he didn't take it well. Then came the vandalism incident, and suddenly you were gone. She shrugged. Draw your own conclusions. My mind raced, trying to reconcile this information with the fragments I'd experienced. Are you saying Adam was behind the vandalism in my dorm room? Nothing was ever proven, Rebecca replied carefully. But the timing was suggestive. That's enough speculation, Daniel interjected firmly. Eliza, whatever happened 20 years ago, maybe it's best left in the past. You've built a new life, a successful career. Why risk stirring up old troubles? The question hung in the air, punctuated by thunder rolling across the campus. Why indeed? Because someone was already stirring those troubles, leaving notes, watching me. Because my mind contained a black hole where significant events should be. Because I couldn't move forward until I understood what I was running from. I appreciate the concern, I said finally. But I need answers. After they left, I studied the photograph more carefully. My younger self looked happy, even radiant, gazing up at Adam with unmistakable affection. Nothing in the image suggested the fear his presence now inspired in me. What had happened to transform love into terror? That evening, I decided to visit the student art gallery. If Adam and I had been involved, and if art had been central to my life at Oak Ridge, perhaps the space would trigger more concrete memories. The Lambert Gallery occupied the ground floor of the arts building. During the day, it showcased student work, but after hours, it stood empty and dimly lit by security lights. I used my faculty key to enter, the silence enveloping me as the door clicked shut. Display stands and pedestals created shadows across the polished floor. Current student works lined the walls, technically accomplished but bearing the hallmarks of developing talents. I wandered slowly, allowing the atmosphere to work on my subconscious, hoping for some flicker of recognition. Near the back wall, I noticed a door marked Storage. On impulse, I tried my key. To my surprise, it opened, revealing a narrow room lined with shelves containing wrapped canvases and boxed sculptures. A light switch illuminated a bare bulb overhead. I moved carefully among the archived pieces, noting dates on their labels. Most were recent, exceptional student works kept for the school's permanent collection. But a section at the back held older pieces, some dating back decades. A large, dust-covered portfolio leaning against the far wall caught my attention. Unlike the carefully labeled works surrounding it, this one bore only a small tag with a date, February 2005, the month I'd left Oakridge. My hands trembled as I carefully extracted the portfolio and laid it flat on a nearby table. Inside was a series of canvases wrapped in protective paper. I unwrapped the first one slowly, revealing a striking abstract composition in angry reds and blacks, slashed with silver. Despite the passage of time, the emotional intensity of the piece was undimmed, rage and fear captured in violent brushstrokes. In the lower corner was my signature, E. Mercer. I unwrapped the remaining canvases, 5 in total, finding similar themes of disruption and darkness. The final piece made me gasp aloud. It depicted a female figure, face obscured but clearly in distress, backing away from a looming male presence. The background suggested the very gallery I was standing in. Footsteps in the main gallery space snapped me to attention. I quickly rewrapped the paintings and slid the portfolio back into place, heart pounding. Switching off the storage room light, I eased the door nearly closed, leaving just enough space to peer through. A beam of flashlight swept the gallery, followed by the figure of a security guard making his rounds. I held my breath until he passed, then waited several more minutes before slipping out and relocking the storage room. As I turned to leave, another figure materialized from the shadows near the gallery entrance. Adam Blackwood stood blocking my path, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Working late, Professor Mercer?" His voice was controlled, pleasant even, but carried an undercurrent that raised goosebumps on my arms. "Just familiarizing myself with the space," I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I'm developing ideas for the winter student exhibition." He moved closer, his expensive cologne filling the space between us. "You always did have a gift for creative interpretation. I was so pleased when Pierce mentioned they'd hired you. A chance to reconnect. Were we close?" I asked directly, watching his reaction carefully. My memories of that time are fragmented. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise? Concern, before his expression settled into one of sympathetic understanding. "They told me about your condition. Such a tragedy, losing those months." He reached out as if to touch my face, then seemed to think better of it. "We were everything to each other, Eliza. Until your illness changed you." The hairs on the back of my neck rose. His version didn't align with Rebecca's suggestion that I had ended the relationship before the vandalism incident. "What happened to me?" I pressed. "Everyone seems to have a different story." His smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Viral encephalitis. Very rare, very serious. You became confused, paranoid. Started making accusations, creating disturbing artwork." He gestured vaguely toward the storage room. "The doctors said it was the inflammation affecting your brain. By the time they got it under control, you'd lost months of memories. And the vandalism in my dorm room?" His expression remained perfectly composed, but I noticed his hand clench briefly at his side. "A horrible incident. Never solved, unfortunately. Added stress you didn't need in your fragile state." Every instinct told me he was lying. The paintings I just discovered told a different story, one of fear and threat, not medical delusion. But confronting him directly felt dangerous, especially alone in the deserted gallery. "How fortunate that I recovered," I said carefully. "And now life has brought me full circle, back to Oakridge." "Yes," Adam agreed, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Very fortunate indeed. Though returning to the scene of such trauma, one might question the wisdom." "I go where opportunity leads me," I replied, edging toward the door. "And now, if you'll excuse me, I have classes to prepare for tomorrow." He made no move to stop me, but called after me as I reached the exit. "Eliza? Some doors, once opened, can't be closed again. Consider carefully before you continue this exploration of yours." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the campus shrouded in mist. I hurried across the deserted grounds toward my cottage, constantly checking over my shoulder. Adam's warning echoed in my mind, alongside the disturbing images from my own paintings. Whatever had happened between us, it wasn't the romantic tragedy he described. I was nearly home when a figure stepped out from behind a tree, directly into my path. I stifled a scream, ready to run, when the security light revealed a young woman's face, one of the cafeteria workers I recognized from faculty meals. "Ms. Mercer." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I need to talk to you. About what happened before." My pulse quickened. "Who are you?" "Lily Chen. My mother was the dormitory housekeeper when you were a student here. She glanced nervously around. Not here. It's not safe. Meet me tomorrow at the Bluebird Cafe in town for p.m. Before I could respond, she melted back into the shadows. That night brought fitful sleep and fractured dreams, running down endless corridors, a voice calling my name, paintings that bled when touched. I woke exhausted but determined. After morning classes, I drove the short distance to town, arriving at the Bluebird Cafe early to secure a quiet corner table. Lily arrived precisely at 4, sliding into the seat across from me with nervous energy. Close up, I could see she was younger than I'd initially thought, early 20s perhaps, with intelligent eyes that darted constantly to the door. Thank you for coming, she began, her voice low. My mother made me promise never to talk about what happened. But when I saw you at the faculty welcome, I knew I had to. Your mother witnessed something? I prompted gently. Lily nodded. She was cleaning the East Wing dormitories the day your room was vandalized. She heard arguing, a man's voice raised in anger, then a crash. When she went to investigate, she saw Adam Blackwood storming out of your room. Minutes later, another housekeeper found the destruction inside. My breath caught. She actually saw him leaving the scene? Yes. She reported it to administration immediately. But the next day, she was called to Headmaster Morris's office, the previous headmaster, Lily clarified. He explained that there had been a misunderstanding, that Mr. Blackwood had an alibi for that time. They suggested my mother was confused about the timing. They covered it up, I whispered. The Blackwood family donated the Science Center that year, Lily continued. My mother was given a substantial raise and moved to a different dormitory. She never spoke about it again publicly, but she told me the story years later, warning me about powerful men and institutional protection. She hesitated. There's something else. After you left, strange rumors circulated. That you'd had some kind of breakdown, become dangerous. My mother never believed it. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Because Adam Blackwood is still here, still powerful. And because last week, my mother received a large check from the Blackwood Foundation, a retirement bonus, though she's not retiring for years. Lily's eyes met mine directly. I think someone knew you were coming back and wanted to ensure her silence. The implications were staggering. Not just a covered-up vandalism incident, but a coordinated effort to discredit me and protect Adam, continuing to the present day. Has your mother mentioned seeing anyone watching your house? Or noticing anything unusual recently? Lily frowned. Not that she's mentioned. Why? I hesitated, then decided on transparency. Since returning to Oak Ridge, I've received threatening notes. And I've seen someone watching my cottage. Alarm flashed across her features. You need to be careful. The Blackwoods don't just have money, they have connections. Police, local government. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket. This is my number. Call if you need anything. I should go. I can't be seen talking to you. After Lily left, I remained at the cafe, my coffee growing cold as I processed this new information. The pieces were beginning to align, Adam's vandalism of my room, the school's cover-up, my subsequent departure under the guise of medical issues. But significant gaps remained. Why had I apparently cut myself out of the yearbook? What had I discovered that made me such a threat? Back at my cottage that evening, I spread all my evidence across the kitchen table, the defaced yearbook, the threatening notes, the photograph from Minerva, my descriptions of the paintings I'd found. Connections formed, but the central mystery remained elusive. A sharp knock at my door startled me from my thoughts. Through the peephole, I saw Daniel, his expression concerned. Sorry to drop by unannounced, he said when I opened the door. You missed the department meeting, and you weren't answering your phone. I was in town, I explained, reluctantly stepping aside to let him in. Lost track of time. His eyes fell on the materials spread across my table. Still investigating? I'm making progress, I said, watching his reaction carefully. Learning who my friends and enemies were. Daniel picked up the photograph of Adam and me. Rebecca mentioned you were asking about him. He hesitated. I didn't want to say anything in front of her, but be careful there, Eliza. Adam Blackwood isn't someone to cross lightly. Because of his money and influence? That, and because he's not what he appears. Daniel set down the photograph. I've only been at Oak Ridge 6 years, but I've seen how he operates. Projects that should have gone to other contractors mysteriously awarded to his associates. Faculty who questioned his decisions finding themselves without renewed contracts. Yet you're warning me, I noted. Why risk it? He met my gaze directly. Because I believe in justice. And because whatever happened to you 20 years ago clearly still haunts this place. He gestured toward the yearbook. Have you considered that you might have defaced this yourself? Not as self-erasure, but as a statement. The possibility hadn't occurred to me. What kind of statement? She doesn't belong here, he quoted. Not self-rejection, but defiance. Rejection of Oak Ridge and what it represented: privilege, corruption, institutional protection of the powerful at the expense of the vulnerable. His interpretation resonated with something deep within me, a certainty that felt like recovered memory. But before I could respond, movement outside my kitchen window caught my attention. A shadow passing too quickly, too deliberately. Did you see that? I asked sharply. Daniel turned. What? Someone's outside. I moved quickly to lock the front door, drawing the curtains. This isn't the first time. Daniel's expression turned grave. Call campus security. And tell them what? That the trustee they answer to might be stalking me? I shook my head. I need evidence first. Then we'll get evidence. Daniel pulled out his phone. I'm staying here tonight. You can take the bedroom. I'll sleep on the couch. If anyone's watching your place, we'll document it. His protective instinct touched me, but caution prevailed. I appreciate the offer, but it might make things worse. If Adam is behind this, seeing another man here could escalate the situation. Daniel looked ready to argue, but finally nodded. All right, but promise you'll call if anything happens. He wrote his number on a sticky note from my counter. Anything at all, day or night. After he left, I double-checked all locks and drew every curtain. As an additional measure, I positioned my phone to record the front approach to the cottage before retreating to my bedroom. Sleep came reluctantly, my mind churning with new theories about my past and present danger. A noise startled me awake at 2:17 a.m., the distinct sound of my front door handle turning. I froze, listening intently in the darkness. Silence followed, then a soft scraping at the lock. Someone was trying to get in. Moving silently, I grabbed my phone and retreated to the attached bathroom, locking its door and dialing Daniel's number with trembling fingers. He answered immediately, voice alert despite the hour. Eliza? What's wrong? Someone's trying to get into my cottage, I whispered. I think they're picking the lock. I'm calling campus security and coming right over. Stay hidden and stay on the line. Minutes crawled by as I crouched in the bathtub, phone clutched to my ear, listening to Daniel's reassurances as he drove toward campus. Outside the bathroom, I heard the front door open, a quiet creak followed by careful footsteps moving through my living room. Then silence. Whoever had entered was standing still, perhaps listening for sounds of movement. They're inside. I breathed into the phone. I can hear them. Security is on their way, Daniel responded, his voice tight with concern. I'm 2 minutes out. A new sound emerged, drawers opening, papers rustling. The intruder was searching for something. My evidence. The materials spread across my kitchen table. The bathroom had no windows, no secondary exit. I was trapped, forced to listen as someone methodically moved through my home. The footsteps grew closer, pausing outside my bedroom door. I held my breath as the doorknob turned and hinges creaked. Then, suddenly, flashing lights illuminated the edges of the curtained window in my bedroom. A car had pulled up outside, its headlights cutting through the darkness. I heard the front door slam as the intruder fled. Minutes later, sharp knocking and calls of campus security brought me cautiously from my hiding place. 2 uniformed officers stood in my living room alongside a disheveled Daniel. Are you hurt? He asked immediately, moving toward me with visible relief. Just shaken, I assured him, turning to the security officers. Someone broke in. They were searching through my things. The officers took my statement professionally, though I noted they exchanged glances when I mentioned feeling watched since my arrival. They found evidence of forced entry at the front door, subtle scratches around the lock, but no fingerprints or other identifying clues. Probably just campus thieves, the senior officer suggested. We've had reports of petty theft in faculty housing before. You should consider a security system. After they left, promising increased patrols, Daniel refused to leave. I'll sleep in the car if I have to, he insisted. But after what just happened, you shouldn't be alone. Too exhausted and frightened to argue, I agreed to his presence on the couch. Neither of us mentioned the obvious, that ordinary thieves don't pick locks with professional skill, enter without taking valuables, and target specific papers. Morning brought a new development. As I prepared for classes, an email notification appeared on my phone, a message from an unfamiliar address containing only a video attachment. With Daniel watching over my shoulder, I played the file. The grainy security footage showed the gallery storage room where I discovered my paintings. A timestamp indicated it was from last night, shortly after my encounter with Adam. The video showed him entering the room, retrieving the portfolio of my work and leaving with it tucked under his arm. "Evidence removal," Daniel said grimly. "He knew you'd found them." The video was followed by a text message from an unlisted number. "Not everything has been destroyed. Greenhouse. East corner. Under floorboard." "It's a trap," Daniel warned. "Someone trying to lure you somewhere isolated." "Or someone trying to help," I countered, thinking of Lily. "The old greenhouse is visible from the main building. If I go during daylight hours." Despite Daniel's objections, I was determined. We agreed he would wait nearby, watching from a distance while I investigated. The greenhouse stood at the eastern edge of campus, a Victorian structure of glass and wrought iron that had fallen into partial disuse. Plant biology classes used one section, but the east wing remained largely abandoned, its glass panels clouded with age and neglect. I entered cautiously during my free period, when most faculty and students were in class. Sunlight filtered through dirty glass, creating dappled patterns across stone pathways lined with empty planters and abandoned gardening tools. Moving toward the east corner, I searched for loose floorboards among the slate tiles. In the furthest corner, partially hidden by an overgrown fern, I found what I was looking for, a slate tile that shifted slightly when pressed. With trembling fingers, I lifted it, revealing a small space beneath. Inside was a plastic bag containing a flash drive and a folded sheet of paper. The handwriting on the note was my own, though more frantic than my usual careful script. "If you're reading this," I couldn't stop him. "The evidence is on the drive. Password, The Blackwood Lies 2005. Trust no one at Oak Ridge. E.M." I had left myself a message, a time capsule of warning, anticipating that I might return someday without my memories. But who had directed me to it now, after all these years? My hand shook as I replaced the tile and slipped the bag into my pocket. Through the smudged glass walls, I could see Daniel waiting by the botany building as promised. I waved to indicate I was on my way out. As I turned to leave, a movement near the greenhouse entrance caught my attention. Rebecca Winters stood watching me, her expression unreadable. "Finding what you were looking for?" she asked as I approached. "Just exploring the campus," I replied cautiously. "Rediscovering old spaces." She smiled thinly. "Interesting timing. Did your mysterious correspondent tell you where to look? Or did you remember on your own?" The direct question stunned me. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The anonymous message about the greenhouse," she clarified, her tone matter-of-fact. "I sent it." I stared at her, mind racing. "Why?" "Because 20 years is long enough for lies to stand unchallenged." She glanced toward where Daniel waited. "Not here. Meet me at my office after last period. Come alone, or don't come at all." She departed before I could respond, leaving me with more questions than answers. I rejoined Daniel, showing him my discovery but withholding Rebecca's confession. Something told me I needed to hear her out privately before involving anyone else, even someone as seemingly supportive as Daniel. The flash drive burned a hole in my pocket throughout my afternoon classes. What evidence had my younger self deemed so important that she'd hidden it beneath the greenhouse floor? And why had Rebecca chosen now to reveal its location? As the final bell rang, I told Daniel I needed time alone to process everything and would call him later. His concern was evident, but he respected my request, extracting only a promise that I would check in before dark. Rebecca's office was located in the mathematics wing, a tidy space lined with bookshelves containing mathematical texts and what appeared to be research journals. She sat behind her desk, fingers steepled, as if she'd been waiting precisely this way since our greenhouse encounter. "Close the door," she instructed when I entered. I complied but remained standing. "Why did you send me to the greenhouse?" "Because you needed to find what you left behind." She leaned forward. "I've been waiting for you to return to Oak Ridge for 20 years, Eliza. Waiting for the opportunity to finally expose the truth." "What truth?" I asked, though something in me already knew the answer. That Adam Blackwood should have gone to prison instead of being protected by this institution. Rebecca's eyes flashed with long-contained anger. "That you were systematically discredited and removed when you threatened to expose him." "You know what happened," I stated rather than asked. "I know what they did to you," she confirmed. "I was your roommate, Eliza." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My roommate. The person who would have been closest to me, witness to my daily life, my relationship with Adam, the aftermath of the vandalism. "We weren't close," Rebecca continued, noting my shocked expression. "You were focused on art, I on mathematics. But we respected each other's space and privacy. When you started dating Adam Blackwood, I warned you he wasn't what he seemed. His previous girlfriend had left the school under mysterious circumstances the year before." "Did I listen?" I asked softly. Eventually, after you discovered what he was really doing at Oak Ridge, she reached into her desk drawer, withdrawing a photograph and sliding it across to me. This is what started everything unraveling. The image showed Adam in what appeared to be a school office, passing an envelope to a much younger Richard Pierce, who was accepting it with a furtive expression. You found evidence that Adam was bribing faculty for altered grades, Rebecca explained. Not just for himself, but for several students from wealthy families. A cheating ring protected by money and influence. Pierce was just an English teacher then, but ambitious. The Blackwood family's patronage helped him rise to administration, eventually to headmaster. I discovered this? I asked, studying the damning photograph. You discovered much more. Financial records. Altered grade sheets. You were gathering evidence for weeks, planning to take it to the school board. Then someone broke into our room and destroyed everything. Your artwork, your documents, your camera. Adam, I whispered, the pieces falling into place. The next day, you started acting erratically. Confused, disoriented. The school nurse said you had a fever, sent you to the hospital. When you returned weeks later, you were different, subdued, with significant memory gaps. They claimed viral encephalitis, but... You think I was drugged, I finished, the horrible realization dawning. To discredit me before I could expose them. Rebecca nodded grimly. I can't prove it. Medical records claimed natural illness. But the timing was too convenient. Before you left Oak Ridge for good, you made a copy of all your evidence. You told me you'd hidden it somewhere on campus, somewhere they wouldn't think to look. The greenhouse, I murmured. I never knew exactly where. You said it was safer if I didn't know. Rebecca's expression softened slightly. You were the first person who saw through Oak Ridge's pristine facade, who tried to hold the powerful accountable. After you left, I promised myself I'd stay, work my way into the system, and wait for an opportunity to continue what you started. By bringing me back, I realized. You're on the hiring committee. She nodded. When your application came across my desk, I knew it was time. The old guard is retiring. Pierce is stepping down next year. Adam is positioning himself to control the selection of the next headmaster. If we don't expose them now, the cycle continues for another generation. I withdrew the flash drive from my pocket. Then let's see what I left behind. Rebecca's computer was adequate for viewing the drive's contents. The password, the Blackwood Lies 2005, granted access to a folder containing dozens of files, photographed financial records, grade sheets with obvious alterations, incriminating emails, and a detailed document outlining the entire operation in my own meticulous handwriting. Most damning was a series of photographs showing Adam meeting with various faculty members, money clearly changing hands. A final video file, dated February 3, 2005, days before my departure, showed Adam in the art studio, systematically slashing my paintings while speaking into a phone. It's handled. She won't be a problem anymore. This is everything we need, Rebecca breathed, staring at the screen. With this evidence, even the Blackwood name can't protect them. A soft noise from the hallway made us both freeze. Footsteps approached, then receded. We need to make copies, I whispered urgently. Multiple backups, different locations. My home computer, Rebecca agreed. And we should contact a lawyer immediately, someone with no ties to Oak Ridge. As we hurriedly copied files, a new message appeared on my phone, from Daniel. Where are you? Need to talk urgently. I hesitated, then replied. With Rebecca. Made a breakthrough. We'll explain later. His response was immediate and disturbing. Don't trust her. Coming to you now. Rebecca noticed my expression. What's wrong? I showed her the message, watching her reaction carefully. Interesting, she said calmly. I was about to warn you about him. About Daniel? I felt cold dread spreading through me. Why? Because he was hired 3 years ago, the same time Adam joined the board of trustees. She turned her computer screen toward me, showing a social media photo of Daniel and Adam at what appeared to be a charity event, looking very much like old friends. They attended the same college. I've suspected for some time that Daniel reports directly to Adam, keeping tabs on potential problems within the faculty. My mind reeled at this new betrayal. Daniel's solicitous concern, his convenient appearances when I was researching, his insistence on staying close. Not protection, but surveillance. We need to leave campus, I decided. Now, with the evidence. Rebecca nodded, ejecting the flash drive and handing it to me. Take my car. I'll create a diversion if needed. We moved quickly through the deserted hallways, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the empty classrooms. As we neared the faculty parking lot, I spotted Daniel's figure by Rebecca's car, clearly waiting. "Back exit," Rebecca whispered, pulling me toward a side door. We emerged near the administrative building, changing course toward the visitor parking area where my own car was located. As we rounded the corner, we nearly collided with Headmaster Pierce. "Eliza, Rebecca," he greeted us, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Working late. Just heading home," Rebecca replied smoothly. "Long day." Pierce nodded, but made no move to let us pass. "Actually, Eliza, I was hoping to speak with you. Adam Blackwood has raised some concerns about your research into past events." The calm way he addressed the subject confirmed everything. He knew. He'd always known. "I have a prior engagement," I stated firmly. "Perhaps tomorrow. I'm afraid this can't wait." His tone hardened as he glanced toward the main building. Following his gaze, I saw Adam emerging from the entrance, with Daniel close behind. We were being cornered. "Richard," Rebecca spoke up, her voice carrying a warning edge. "You might want to consider very carefully whose side you're on right now." Pierce's eyes narrowed. "I've always done what's best for Oak Ridge. By protecting criminals," I challenged, finding sudden courage. "By covering up corruption and discrediting a student who discovered it." Something flickered across his features. Doubt, perhaps even shame. "You don't understand the complexity." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "I have the evidence, Richard. All of it. Including your role in what happened to me." Adam and Daniel were approaching quickly now, cutting off our escape route to the parking lot. "Whatever you think you have," Pierce began, but Rebecca cut him off. "Multiple copies, multiple locations," she stated coldly. "And a detailed account already emailed to the Board of Education and 3 news outlets, set to release automatically if anything happens to either of us." It was a bluff, but Pierce couldn't know that. His hesitation gave us the opening we needed. "Make your choice," I told him quietly. 20 years ago, you chose wrong. Here's your chance to correct that mistake." For a long, tense moment, he said nothing. Then, almost imperceptibly, he stepped aside. "Pierce," Adam called sharply as he approached. "Are they being taken to your office as we discussed?" The headmaster turned slowly, positioning himself between us and the approaching men. "Actually, Adam, I believe Ms. Mercer and Ms. Winters were just leaving campus, and I suggest we let them." Adam's face contorted with barely controlled rage. "You don't understand what's at stake." "I understand perfectly," Pierce interrupted with newfound resolve. "And I'm done being complicit." He turned back to us. "Go. Now." We didn't wait for a second invitation, hurrying to my car as Adam's furious protests echoed behind us. As we pulled away from campus, I glanced in the rearview mirror to see Daniel watching our departure, phone pressed to his ear. "Where to?" I asked Rebecca as we reached the main road. "My sister's house in the next county," she decided. "We'll be safe there while we organize the evidence and contact authorities." As darkness fell and the miles between us and Oak Ridge grew, the weight of 20 years began lifting from my shoulders. Fragments of memory were returning now, not as traumatic flashbacks, but as pieces of a puzzle finally finding their proper places. I remembered my relationship with Adam, how his charming facade had cracked to reveal manipulation and control. I remembered discovering the first evidence of the cheating ring, my gradual collection of proof. Most importantly, I remembered my own determination to expose the corruption, even as threats mounted. "Why the yearbook?" I asked Rebecca as we drove through the night. "Why did I slash my own face out of it?" She smiled sadly. "That was your final act of defiance. The day before you left Oak Ridge for good, you told me, if they want to erase me, I'll do it myself first. You slashed your photo and wrote that caption as a statement, that you refused to belong to an institution built on lies." Understanding washed over me. Not self-erasure, but a declaration of independence. Not victimhood, but resistance. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for waiting all these years. For bringing me back to finish what I started." "We're not finished yet," she reminded me. "But after tonight, Oak Ridge will never be the same." 6 months later, I stood before my art class in the sunny studio of Westridge Community College. Spring light streamed through the windows as my students worked on their final projects, their concentration evident in the quiet focus that filled the room. The headlines had eventually faded from the regional papers. "Prestigious Academy Rocked by Fraud Scandal." Blackwood Air faces multiple charges. Educational cover-up spans decades. The legal proceedings continued, Adam awaiting trial, Pierce testifying under immunity, several former faculty members facing charges. I had given my testimony, provided my evidence, and then stepped away from the spotlight. Some memories had never fully returned, and perhaps never would. But the important ones had, enough to reclaim my narrative and help bring justice to an institution that had valued reputation over truth. Rebecca had stayed at Oak Ridge, appointed to the Interim Administration Committee tasked with reforming the school's governance and ethics policies. We spoke regularly, both of us healing in our own ways from wounds inflicted years ago. As for the slashed yearbook photo, I had framed it, not as a reminder of trauma, but as a testament to resilience. It hung in my home studio alongside new works that explored themes of memory, truth, and reclamation. The caption that had once seemed so ominous, "She doesn't belong here," had transformed in meaning. It was no longer a threat, but an affirmation. I hadn't belonged in a system built on corruption and privilege. My refusal to conform had been my greatest strength, even when it cost me years of my life and pieces of my memory. As I moved among my students, offering guidance and encouragement, my phone vibrated with a message from Rebecca. "Board approved the Victim Compensation Fund today. Justice comes in many forms." I smiled, tucking the phone away. The past couldn't be changed, but its power over the present had been broken. I had returned to Oak Ridge not to belong there, but to set myself, and many others, free from its shadow. Sometimes, not belonging is the most powerful statement of all.